Tiamat, also known as the Dragon Queen, the Dark Lady, the Avaricious, and the Nemesis of the Gods. This five-headed monstrosity of a beast is actually considered a lesser god within the world of the Forgotten Realms, and the Temple of Tiamat raid encounter found within this video game is the culmination to a series of cataclysmic events that have been set into motion by one man, well, largely in part by one man, one Severin Solarian, who is the leader of the Cult of the Dragon. The Cult of the Dragon is a fanatical group of people who are actually pretty dang crazy, if you ask me. Their main belief and their moral dogma is that they found a book that they had to translate. This book is called The Chronicle of Years to Come, so they believe it to be a prophetical book, one that prophesizes things, and they found a particular verse in there which they translated to mean that, essentially, they translated to mean that dragons are going to come back to the world of Toril, which is the world that Neverwinter takes place in, the entire world. It would be our equivalent of Earth. The continent that they are on, that the game takes place on anyway, is Faerun, but that's neither here nor there.
We must stop them from
but they believe that this prophecy basically says that dragons are going to come and basically kill everything. And for whatever reason, Severin and all his little buddies think it would be a fantastic idea to help accomplish this by helping bring Tiamat, the Dragon Queen, into the material plane, because she's actually, in case you couldn't catch it from the various audio clips that happen throughout the game, she is actually a denizen of the Nine Hells. I think it's the first level of the Nine Hells that she chills in. That's the place she calls home. I could be mistaken there. If I am, I'm terribly sorry. I don't mean to. I hope it doesn't ruin your day that I misquoted something. I gotta say, guys, this raid to me has been super fun. I've had a lot of fun with this. I personally run a righteous spec DC. I am a 16.5k gear score righteous DC. When I do the Cleric phase, honestly the main skill that I use, and it'll be the only skill I use almost the entire time, will be Chains of Blazing Light. And mainly I use it just for the immobilization that it has with it. I'm not using it to damage. I also occasionally will throw out the Flame Strike, I think it is, the daily Flame Strike maybe? I'm having a hard time now. It's the one, it does quite a bit of damage in AoE, and then it actually has a small knockback attached to it, and that's usually enough to where if the Cleric gets crowded, I can put that on top of the Cleric and it will knock everything off of it. Not super far, it's not sunbursting everything away, or it's doing the CW daily, I can't remember what that's called, where it sends everything flying hundreds of feet away. It basically just knocks things back about 5 or 6 feet. But usually it does, between the knock and the damage that it does, it's enough to take aggro off of the Cleric, which is all that you really want during this phase. You don't actually have to kill anything. If you really feel like it, you can. If your group has the DPS and you think you guys got it, then go ahead and murder all the demon faces that you can. But ultimately, it's not necessary. If you got a tank handy, all you really need is the tank to draw aggro, and he can actually walk away and then just keep the tank alive. And because there's only a limited number of bad guys that will spawn per Cleric. The middle Cleric actually gets 2 spawns, whereas the left and right Cleric only get 1 enemy spawn per, and I think it's 5 mobs per spawn, I believe. So that'll give you an idea of what kind of control you're going to be needing, or if you're a tank, how much damage you're going to be taking. I have seen tanks solo left or right Clerics, which is pretty impressive to watch. I guess I'll go ahead and throw out my 2 cents on this. It's a rather hot button issue within the Neverwinter community, I know, and that is gear score in this particular raid. Now, the minimum gear score requirement to get into this raid is 10k gear score. And that's actually the minimum requirement to get into the Well of Dragons, not necessarily the Tiamat raid. You need 10k gear score to even get in the Well of Dragons. And so I guess it just kind of got grandfathered in that that's what you need for Tiamat. I think that even people with 10k gear score or 11k or even 12k, because I think the status quo is supposed to be 13k. It tends to be whatever the gear score is of the person that's yelling at you and telling you that you need a higher gear score. It's their gear score minus probably about 500. That seems to be almost always the case, which, I'll be honest, it's just silly. It's a silly belief. To me, the thing that you need to do, though, however, because if you are running 10k gear score, technically you're not gonna. It's not really possible for you to have the same damage as, say, somebody that's rocking 17 or 18k 20. You get what I'm saying? A higher gear score than you. But where you can make up for it is in the buffs and the debuffs that you provide. If you have the artifact, the Lantern of Revelation, you definitely need to be using that on the Dragon Heads. If you're a Trickster Rogue, which, you know, there's a few of them out there, I know you think you're a DPS class, but you can also help with the buffs and the debuffs with the Wicked Reminder is one of your encounters that I believe is a debuff. I don't believe Smoke Bomb will actually affect Tiamat just because she is a boss, and I don't believe bosses are affected by control effects. I think you could use Courage Breaker, and then actually I think that's it. I'm not entirely sure. Somebody that's actually a TR could probably fill me in a little bit better on what it is that you guys could bring to the table aside from a proverbial gobs and gobs of DPS. I know CWs have their chaotic feats that they can bring buffs to the table with that, and if you are CW, obviously you need to be doing that, although you guys look out a little bit more because you guys do gobs more damage. SWs, you guys, I hate you first off because you always, if you know what you're doing, if you're a temp block especially, you will always get first on the in-game charts, which, from what I gather, the in-game charts are, the in-game scoreboard is factored up from a mixture of how much damage you do, how much healing you do, how much damage you take, and also the alignment of the moon, the sun, and Jupiter. That's the only thing I can figure. If anybody from Cryptic wants to go ahead and speak up and give us the exact mathematics as to how in-game score works, that would actually be really fun to know. I personally would like to know, although from what I understand, that's not been information that's been released yet. Where was I though? I digress. I feel like the lower gear score people, that you can still be an asset. You don't have to give up on this particular raid just because you have a lower gear score. If you are a class that has buffs, you are especially important. Now, I guess it's kind of not really evidence per se, or even anecdotal evidence, because my Righteous Spec DC here is a 16.5k gear score. I could pump it up higher if I equip different gear, but I support High Prophet because High Prophet has more buffs. And it's all about the buffs. To me, between High Prophet, Greater Plague Fire, and then during the Dragon Head phases, I will sport Prophecy of Doom, Divine Glow, and then either Forge Master's Flame or Break the Spirit. Both of those, if you use them in empowered mode, will grant either a 15% damage boost to all those near you, or a 30% damage boost to all those near you. And when you're thinking 15% times 24 other individuals, or 30% times 24 other individuals, you're more than making up for anybody with a low gear score, which is part of why I don't quite understand why there's this stigma behind the low gear scores ruin it for everybody. I think some people just need to get off your high horse, perhaps a little bit, and just have fun with the game. I think one of the biggest things you can do, if you see somebody that's a low gear score and they're not using anything that's being a buff or a debuff, and they're not being ultimately helpful if they're fighting on top of the clerics, don't yell at them, because yelling at them doesn't accomplish anything. It never in the history of ever has yelling at somebody in a mean manner gotten you the end result that you wanted in a stress-free environment. Honestly, what's the old adage? You catch more flies with honey. So if you see somebody that's doing something and you think that, oh, maybe they just don't know better, try being nice to them. Send them a tell and be like, hey man, I see you're not using Wicked Reminder. You're a TR and you're not using Wicked Reminder. You should probably use that. It'll help out a lot. I feel like, you know, just these sort of things, if we can kind of raise awareness and get everybody using their buffs and their debuffs, you'll have more successful encounters. Now, the other tip that I guess I could give for successful encounters is don't be a noob and don't run in as soon as the dragon, or as soon as you're able to. As soon as the door goes off and it says, enter the Temple of Tiamat, that is essentially the time of the noobs for the first, like, 3 minutes or so, or supposedly. I'll be honest, I've gone in during those first times. I've gone in when it just spawned with my buff Cleric. This is not that run. Because I wanted to see how much of an impact just using buffs went. And I will tell you guys from experience that going in at 5 minutes with my buff build, we were able to complete it successfully. So that should go to show you how much of a asset buffs are to your party. Now, I will say that that particular run was a bit of a pain in the butt, and it's also why I also recommend not necessarily going in at the very beginning, because you end up having to coach everyone as far as what they need to be doing, making sure that they don't kill the dragon heads too much outside of their capabilities, because that could lead to a failed attempt if you don't have enough DPS to burn down everything from 25%. There's no reason to do like we're doing right here and making an attempt to take her out in 2 runs. So yes, I guess in summary I will say that if you're looking for more successful Tiamat runs, the biggest thing you can do is to run buffs and convince everyone else around you to run buffs. It's not all about the DPS, it's all about the buffs, which the buffs in turn actually end up being about DPS, I guess, in a rather roundabout way. It's just more damage per second, and more is always better, right? So I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I hope that at least that little tidbit of advice, it wasn't a whole lot, was enough to essentially make it to where you guys will be able to start successfully completing Tiamat and get on your merry way to acquiring the, what is it, it's some 50, 60, 70, 80 odd Linus favors that you're going to end up needing to just unlock the last 2 boons. Also, that's another thing too. I personally would not recommend using your Linus favors to get your offhands or the cloaks. Save them for the boons, guys. If you plan on getting those boons, and just pray and hope and cross your fingers and pray some more to RNGesus that you end up getting your offhand and if a cloak, or you could buy the cloak if that's what you want. Because the amount of Linus favors that you're going to need for those buffs in the end is just staggering. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up, guys, and I am out of time. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you all next time. This is Pup, signing off.